The moment Judge Harrison looked up from the paperwork, I just knew, deep in my bones, that this circus was about to end exactly how I'd been telling people it would for weeks. His eyebrows shot up so high, you'd swear they were about to escape his forehead altogether, and the way he took off his glasses and set them on the desk. It was like a bomb tech snipping the right wire calm, but you just knew something was about to go off. Then, in a voice dripping with that special kind of disbelief only judges and kindergarten teachers seem to master, he goes, "Mrs. Peaton, am I understanding this correctly? You're suing this gentleman because his property isn't part of your HOA." I couldn't help it, a little smirk crept onto my face. Margaret Peaton, president for life, or so she thought of Riverside Gardens HOA, was standing there in her power suit, arms so rigid at her sides she looked like she was about to salute. I'll give her credit, she was nothing if not committed. "That's correct, Your Honor," she said, every word packed tight with conviction. "His flagrant disregard for our community standards is affecting property values for the entire neighborhood." Now, if you've never been the target of a neighborhood tyrant, let me tell you, it's like living next to a malfunctioning Roomba that keeps banging into your front door, convinced you're the reason its life isn't working out. I just slid a piece of paper across the table and tried not to grin. "Your Honor, this is a property survey map from the county assessor's office," I said. "As you can see, my house is in Pine Ridge Estates, not Riverside Gardens. We don't even share a street. We don't even share a zip code half the time." Judge Harrison didn't waste another second, brought his gavel down so hard I thought Margaret might actually flinch, and said, "Case dismissed with prejudice. Mrs. Peaton, if you file another frivolous lawsuit in my courtroom, you'll be held in contempt." And I swear the shade of purple Margaret's face turned isn't even in the Crayola box. It was somewhere between eggplant and volcanic rage. But hey, let me back up a sec because you need the full picture. Just 3 weeks before all this courtroom drama, I'd finally bought my first house, 42 Pine Ridge Drive. That's right. My own little slice of freedom, no HOA, no bossy committees, just a ranch-style home with a workshop in back where I could tinker with my old motorcycles. You know what I mean? After years of dealing with paper-thin apartment walls and neighbors who thought vacuuming at 2 a.m. was normal, this place felt like paradise. Pine Ridge Estates was a unicorn, no HOA, no rules about what color your mailbox had to be or how many lawn gnomes you could display. I was 23 feet, I measured 23 feet from the border with Riverside Gardens, which meant I could wave to the neighbors if I felt neighborly. But nobody could tell me my grass was too long or that my shed wasn't the right shade of desert sage. And that should have been the end of the story. Except Margaret Peaton ran Riverside Gardens like a medieval fiefdom. I'd seen her around helmet of bleached blonde hair lips, permanently pursed, stalking the sidewalks with a clipboard like she was one parking ticket away from being crowned queen of bureaucracy. She took power trip to a whole new altitude. Trouble started when I put up solar panels. Perfectly legal, inspected, permitted, even signed off by the city. But that didn't stop Margaret. She saw them during her morning power walk and came marching up my driveway so fast I thought she might issue me a speeding ticket. She raised her clipboard like a holy relic and said, "These solar panels are not approved by the Riverside Gardens Architectural Review Committee." I didn't even look up from my bike. Good thing I don't live in Riverside Gardens, huh? That's when her eye twitched. "Your property impacts our community's visual harmony," she barked. "You need to submit an application for retroactive approval." I wiped my hands on a rag and gave her the friendliest smile I could muster. "Margaret, I don't live in your HOA, I don't pay dues to your HOA, and I have never not once agreed to your HOA rules. So, have a nice day." Should have been game over, right? Of course not. The next morning, I woke up to a violation notice literally taped to my front door like some medieval proclamation. It cited me for unauthorized solar installation, non-compliant mailbox design, and get this, excessive driveway oil stains. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Then I took a picture and sent it to my friend James, who's a lawyer. He texted back, "Keep it. Evidence of harassment." Margaret went all in. She started taking photos of my property from the sidewalk every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, filed city complaints claiming my backyard workshop was a commercial operation because I sometimes fixed friends' bikes for fun. She even convinced 3 Riverside Gardens residents to sign a petition claiming my solar panels caused hazardous glare, even though their houses didn't face mine. The cherry on top, a cease and desist letter printed in Comic Sans on HOA letterhead accusing me of aesthetic terrorism because I was turning my side yard into a wildflower garden. Not from a lawyer, just her. You want to know how I responded? I put up a flagpole in my front yard and flew a bright flag that said, "Not your HOA." Was it petty? Maybe. Did it feel good? Oh, you better believe it. 2 days later, she filed the lawsuit. The legal claim was pure fiction. She argued, my proximity to Riverside Gardens created an implied covenant binding me to their rules, and she wanted damages for decreased property values, emotional distress, and something called administrative burden compensation. She also demanded I pay 5 years of back dues plus penalties plus $23,000 in all. I didn't even bother to hire a lawyer. I just printed out 3 things: the county property map, my deed with 0 HOA restrictions, and a Google Maps screenshot with a big arrow labeled "Not in Riverside Gardens." On hearing day, Margaret rolled in with her whole HOA board, all in matching blazers funded by residents' dues, by the way. She brought 3 binders of evidence, mostly resident emails whining about my dandelions, and a PowerPoint about property values made entirely with 90s clip art. She tried to set up a projector. Bailiff had to tell her twice that wasn't happening. When it was her turn, Margaret delivered a 15-minute lecture on community standards and how my rebellion was inspiring anarchy. She literally said, if we allow one person to live outside our rules while benefiting from our community's aesthetic appeal, chaos will ensue. The judge cut in. But he doesn't live in your community. Correct? Margaret stammered. He lives adjacent. That makes him subject to our governance. Judge Harrison just stared, then asked, so the gas station across the street is under your HOA too? Margaret hesitated. Well, that's commercial, so it's different. Right. My turn. I stood, handed over my papers, and explained 2 different neighborhoods, 2 different sets of rules. I'm not her problem. Judge barely looked at the documents before saying, Mrs. Peaton, do you understand that filing frivolous lawsuits can get you sanctioned? Margaret tried to argue boundaries shouldn't override community impact. Judge wasn't having a case dismissed with prejudice. But Margaret's reign didn't end there. I filed a harassment complaint with the police, had photos, emails, and documentation of her trespassing, city complaints, everything. The officer taking my report barely held it together, told me Margaret once tried to citizen's arrest a mailman for wearing shorts. Police gave her a formal warning for harassment and trespassing. When they delivered it, she tried to recite HOA bylaws to the officer. He just said, ma'am, HOA rules don't supersede actual laws. I mailed every Riverside Gardens resident a copy of the court dismissal and the police report, plus a note. Your HOA president spent your dues suing a non-member. Maybe ask where else your money goes. The backlash was nuclear. Turned out Margaret had spent HOA money on all sorts of business matching blazers, a laptop for her essential oil side hustle, you name it. At the next emergency HOA meeting, residents demanded a full audit. Margaret tried to shout them down, but the board overruled her. She started raving about constitutional violations. The vice president literally had to bang a backup gavel to shut her up. The vote 28-1 to remove her. Her only supporter was herself. She stormed out, swearing everyone would regret it when property values crashed. The new president's first act was refunding residents a chunk of dues wasted on the lawsuit. The second, banning Margaret from any HOA position for 5 years. The audit showed she'd spent $47,000 on legal fees for my case and a dozen other failed lawsuits, including one against the gas station for neon signs. The HOA sued Margaret for misusing funds she had to pay back $32,000 and another $15,000 in punitive damages. When the judge read the verdict, Margaret's jaw hit the floor. She actually muttered, "But I was protecting property values right before her new lawyer dragged her out." So here's my question for you: who really protects a community? The person chasing neighbors with rules, or the folks who know where their boundaries start and end? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever tangled with an HOA tyrant, or did you finally stand your ground and win? If you think boundaries matter, share your story below. And don't forget, sometimes the best way to deal with a bully is to plant a wildflower garden right where they can see it.